Scoreboard. I'm Kelsey Mims and I'm joined by Michael Deere and Mitchell Morgan. And guys, we're going to talk about UCA football. So now this is the second week in the row the Bears have started off slow. What do you guys think seems to be the problem?
Well, this week is a little different from past weeks. First, I'd start off with, it started at the coin toss. Montana State won the coin toss and elected to receive. They obviously wanted to come out with the game plan, get the ball first, drive down the field, which they did. That was a 14-play, 79-yard drive that took almost 7 minutes in the first quarter. They're up 7-0 just like that. The defense didn't do their job holding Montana State in that first drive. So when people think, okay, they started off slow, most of the time it's the offense that you have the mindset, all right, well, they started off slow. Well, in this case, it was a defense that was put on the field first. They didn't get the stop. UCA got the ball back, and they only had a 5-play drive. Reed was 1 for 3 in that drive for 12 yards. They have to punt the ball away. Montana State gets the ball back, drives down the field, another long drive. The second drive was 10 plays, 63 yards. They took up another 4 minutes of clock, and they got 3 points. So UCA was down 10-0 after only having the ball for maybe 2 minutes. So that was tough. I mean, then your offense comes on the field, and you can't go with the game plan that you had to start the game. You're already down 10-0. Well, and not going to be able to rush the ball as much. You're going to have to start throwing the ball immediately. And that gives the Montana State defense, they can key on certain things. That lets their defensive ends fly to the quarterback, rush upfield. So the game plan was thrown off immediately, and before you knew it, when UCA missed their field goal, Montana State drives back down, scores again. It was 16-0, just like that. You had Taylor Reed go out in the second quarter with a concussion, so then you have that to go along with it. So you went in with your starting quarterback. You're already down 16-0. You have to throw in Ryan Howard, who obviously Coach Campbell's comfortable with. And they also lost the starting left guard, Brian Montley, I believe is his name. He had a concussion in the second quarter as well. So you're down a starting left guard and your starting quarterback from the game. So your rushing attack is pretty much gone right then and there. So UCA had to throw the ball, and they did throw the ball a lot.
Yeah, definitely at the halftime, Montana State was leading 23-6, and definitely that's such a slow start. And Coach Campbell talked about that. When you play this team of this kind of caliber that has so much time to focus on what your offense is going to do, they have time just to throw off your game plan. They did that from the beginning, like you talked about. And Ryan Howard came in and did a super good job the second half, but we can't just have a second half team when we start playing conference play. We're going to have to play the whole game. So it just seems like they're not ready to play right off the bat, and they just need to stick with what their strong suits are, and that is throwing the ball. No matter if you win or lose the coin toss, just have a good couple of stops on defense, and then come out and throw the ball like you do in practice, like what we know you're good at, and just try to score. You look at the second half, it would seem like a whole different team came out and played, because we scored 14 points unanswered in the third quarter. And it was remarkable how well they played in the second half, but you didn't see any of that in the first half. So, I don't know how long it's going to take, but this team's going to have to come together and play a full 48 minutes of football.
I know that you mentioned before that they came off slow, and they did start off slow, and it was the defense that was out there first, not the offense. But I think one of the major reasons they do come off slow, whether they're on offense or defense, is because they don't have a true starting quarterback. I mean, how do you expect one quarterback to get in rhythm when they're consistently swapping them? And especially now after Taylor Reed going out with a concussion, do you think that this means that Ryan Howard's going to be the true starting quarterback? I mean, we've seen him prove himself, so I still don't get why he hasn't been starting.
Yeah, man, I hope so. I hope that Coach Campbell realizes that Ryan Howard's the guy that he needs to stick with. I know Taylor Reed might have some packages that he can come in and do very well with, but if you look at the numbers that Ryan put up in the second half of the game, or for the majority of it, 30 for 52, 337 yards with 5 touchdowns. The last person to throw 5 touchdowns in the game was Winterick Smothers in 2012. So definitely, if you look at those stats, why would you not keep this guy in for, the whole game or, the majority of it? So I definitely think that after this performance that Ryan Howard has, I think Coach Campbell has a better, preference of which quarterback he wants to go with. But I think Taylor Reed's going to have his packages that, yes, we're going to throw him in and use them, but Ryan Howard should get the majority starts.
Yeah, I think the last 2 weeks have proved it for Ryan Howard. He came in and led us to the victory for UT Martin game, has a great 3 quarters against Montana State on the road. Unfortunate for Taylor Reed, had the concussion. I mean, nowadays you don't know with concussions and the protocol they have. So this will be Ryan Howard's game more than likely. It's going to benefit the offense, because I think you're right. The other 10 guys on offense need to know this is our starting quarterback from play one, like I said last week in the scoreboard. It would help this team a lot. But getting off to a slow start, it's gonna be a defensive and offensive effort for sure.
I think it worked in our favour that we had the two quarterbacks that could interchange and start, but we did need a true one, and we seem to have that now with Ryan Howard. But we also know that Ryan Howard's had a niggling hamstring injury, so we really don't want what we had last year when we lost Winrick Smothers, our leading starting quarterback, because we had two, and if Ryan keeps going down, he's the starting quarterback, and he has to play now a full game because Taylor can't play. Who are we going to have step up after that?
That's a good question, and hopefully it doesn't come to that point. But if it does, then obviously there's somebody else on the team that Coach Campbell can throw in that situation. I think Coach Campbell understands that, hey, these two quarterbacks have, some injuries, but, hopefully we can make it through the season with one of them as the starting quarterback. And, another point is, it's got to be hard for these quarterbacks just in the back of their mind, knowing, hey, who's going to start today? Is it going to be me or is it going to be Reed? Or, when am I going to get pulled out? So definitely I think to have a starting quarterback before the game starts, and maybe even, during the week of practice before the Saturday, would be a great thing to have. But, hopefully these injuries can go away and one of them can stay healthy all year.
So the Bears only had 64 yards of rushing this week. Do you think this is going to be their main weakness?
I think it is going to be their weakness, only because the passing attack's going to have to be what it's been for years. The rushing game, seeing that we fall behind and you can't get a rushing game going, you lose your left guard, that hurts the run game immensely too. Your tackles are there for the pass protection, your guards are normally there for the power run. And if you can't get Willie Matthews healthy, Blake Beasley can't get him healthy, Taylor Reed now, who was our other option running the ball out of certain offensive setups, now you lose that aspect of the game. It's going to hurt us. And really it is just falling behind early. Once you fall behind early, you have to abandon some parts of your game plan. And for UCA, it's been the run game this year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think it's going to be, that's probably our main weakest. You could say the defense, but the running back position is definitely the weakness for this team. We need to find that starter, just like the quarterback. We have two quarterbacks. We don't know which one to start. And we have a lot of running backs. Yes, they're hurt, but, there's definitely one that we can put in there each week and give him the ball more. Willie Matthews led the team in receptions this past weekend, but I definitely think he needs to lead the team in rushing too. So just look for that to continue to be worked on all year. I don't know how long it's going to take to fix it, but as of now, I would say the rushing is going to be the main weakness, and then maybe the back end of the defense is probably the second biggest weakness on this team.
I feel like it shouldn't be, because they do have two experienced running backs with Beasley and Willie Matthews, but we both know at the moment they're prone to injury, and we don't know how long these guys are going to be out for. We didn't see Beasley play this weekend, and I think this really they suffered for this, not having him there. So I feel like if these running backs can't get healthy, and Taylor Reed, like you said before, isn't back, this is really going to be a big problem for UCA.
Yeah, and you made a good point. Willie Matthews had 10 receptions in the game. He led all the receivers. Maybe in the situation in the Montana State game, falling behind, the run game became more of a short passing game, getting Matthews out of the backfield and hitting him on some routes out of the backfield like that. So our run game kind of evolved into, well, let's get the ball to the running backs a little bit more and some more short passes, and that can be beneficial if you start working down the field in short intermediate gains, and then you can hit a long ball with a Desmond Lewis, Desmond Smith, someone like that. But I was really impressed with how Howard spread the ball around. I mean, you got 10 receptions by Willie Matthews. Desmond Lewis had 8 receptions for 100 yards. Courtney Whitehead had 5 receptions for 84 yards. Desmond Smith had 5 receptions for 73 yards, 3 touchdowns. So at least they spread the ball out. It's not like no one can focus necessarily on one receiver, even though most people would obviously say Desmond Lewis is UCA's #1 threat with the size and speed that he has, but at least they're spreading the ball. They're trying to make up for the deficit at running back by spreading the ball around to more people.
And where's Jatavius Wilson at when all this is going on?
Good point. I'd like to see him a little bit more.
You definitely, put him at running back, or he's the guy that if he can get outside the numbers, more than likely he's gone because he's so quick. So definitely use him more. We have a lot of offensive weapons on this team. I just don't think we're using them to the best of their abilities. And you talked about Smith having 3 touchdown passes. That's the first time since 2010 that somebody's caught 3 touchdown passes in one game. So we have a lot of weapons that people may not know about that we definitely need to use a lot more of. But yeah, back to the running back thing, just I mean, to put Jatavius Wilson back there, I don't know what we're going to do, but it's definitely going to be something that needs to be worked on.
So the Bears are now home for 2 games. What do you expect to see from these 2 home games?
Well, I definitely think that Missouri State game is going to be really hard. They're coming off a 38-0 win, and going to look at the stats for that game, their defense played really well. And with the struggling offense that UCA has, you know, if we can get the passing game going, then we're obviously not going to struggle that much. But Missouri State's going to be a hard game. I'll tell you later who I think is going to win that one. But then we play Nicholls State at home. I think that's going to be a pretty easy win. Good way to start the Southland Conference play is against Nicholls State. So I mean, it's 2 really good games for UCA to play. Missouri State's not going to be a walk in the park, and then Nicholls State, you know, they may put up a fight conference play, but I definitely think they can win at least one out of the 2.
What I expect is 2 wins. Now, we did our preseason scoreboard show, and I had an asterisk next to the Montana State game. That was the kind of the swing game for UCA. Besides Montana State and Stephen F. Austin, that first 6, those 2 were the games that if you win it, look out. If you lose it, you're not done by any means. It's not a conference game. You can come back from that. And this is where they have to. 2 home games in a row. I'm looking for 2 wins. I'm looking for a faster start on both sides of the ball. Defense needs to come out. If defense comes out first, defense needs a 3-and-out. Offense comes out first, no 3-and-out for the offense. Doesn't mean you have to go score necessarily. At least get the ball moving, get some kind of rhythm established where you can come back out and things can pick up as normal, and there is no, takes a quarter and a half to get started. And also I'd like to see UCA establish a little toughness in the running game. It might not be great, but this week might be the time where, you know, we're just going to run the ball, and we might get 2 yards in the cloud of dust, but we're going to make a conceded effort to try and run the ball. Run against the Missouri State, like you said, they had a good defense. They do have a good run defense, so let's try it out this week because before you get into conference play, you better know what you can do and what you can't do because there are going to be teams like the Southeastern Louisianas, Northwestern States that can game plan and completely stop them. Ryan Howard, like we talked about earlier, should start this game. All indications are that he will. Taylor Reed concussion. Look for huge numbers. I mean, if you throw 5 touchdowns, over 300 yards in 3 quarters, let's get a full 4-quarter game from him. Hopefully he's healthy enough to where he can play the whole 4 quarters. Jatavius Wilson, he's got to show up, whether it be in the special teams or something. He's got to have an eye-popping game where 150 all-purpose yards, something like that. And then another thing, improve on red zone defense. Everybody is scoring on UCA's defense. When they get in the red zone, teams are scoring above 80%, and it's touchdowns. It's not just field goals. They've got to improve that too.
Well, we did come off extremely slow against UT Martin, and I feel like that is one thing that we definitely cannot do against Missouri State. Missouri State are coming off a 38-0 win against North Dakota. So what do you think it's going to take for UCA to win a game against Missouri State? I know that they beat them last year. So do you think that they're going to be able to do it again?
I think they can do it again. I'm looking at the stats from Missouri State. They averaged almost 32 points a game. That was similar to Montana State. So you know you're going to play an offense pretty similar. Montana State had a dual threat quarterback, and they mixed it in very well. Missouri State will do a little bit of the same. They like to run the ball a little bit more. They average almost 205 rushing yards a game. So this is going to be UCA's chance on defense to man up. Jonathan Woodard and other guys on the defensive line to get big. One of the surprising things, Missouri State has scored 62 points off of turnovers this year. They have allowed their opponents to score 0. That's awesome. That's something you want to see as a coach. They're not allowing anybody to score after they turn the ball over. They're not a big offensive team. They're not going to put up the eye-popping numbers that UCA might. They're not going to run 90 plays. They're only averaging around 400 yards per game. But like I said earlier, red zone defense for UCA has to be better. They're 88% on the year, 7 of 8 in the red zone. They've scored 6 touchdowns. So when they get there, they score.
Yeah, and the defense that this team, UCA, is going to see from Missouri State is a team that is really good. You know, they held North Dakota to 166 yards and just 7 first downs in the whole game. Missouri State had 247 total yards in the second half, and they had 235 rushing yards. So obviously, you know, they like to run the ball. They're a very balanced attack. So our rush defense is going to have to step up and play really well. I think Jonathan Woodward's going to have a big game. I hope he has a big game. You know, you think UCA is going to win this game, and for some reason, I think Missouri State's going to come in here and they're gonna play with a chip on their shoulder. They just had a big win. Obviously, they want to beat UCA because they lost to us last year. So I think Missouri State's going to come in here and pull the upset. I don't think we have enough on defense to stop this team, and their defense is good enough to figure out what UCA is going to do all game long. Because UCA is having the problem to where, obviously, they can't. I mean, you can't throw the ball all game and expect to win the championship, and no matter what conference it is, you have to have a balanced attack. And this defense that Missouri State has is just going to come in, and they're going to know that we're going to throw the ball majority of the time. So they're going to be able to stop that. I think Missouri State is going to come in here and get the win.
There's a couple of things I'm going to be looking for. Missouri State's a lot like UCA in the sense that they like to start slow.
Yeah.
They've only scored 27 points in the first half of the entire season so far through their 3 games. They've scored 28 points in the third quarter this season and 40 points in the fourth quarter. So they're a team that likes to finish. And usually that means running the ball in the fourth quarter, time of possession, controlling the line of scrimmage. Kiera Harris, their dual threat QB, has over 150 yards rushing on the season, has 550 yards passing. He only has 1 interception. So he takes care of the ball. They run a 2-back rotation with Crowder and Johnson. And the one thing UCA might have a better time with this week, on defense, they only have to focus on 1 wide receiver, Julian Burton. He has 11 receptions for 218 yards in the season, 3 touchdowns. No other player on their roster, the receiver position, has more than 4 receptions and 68 yards. So they have that one threat at wide receiver. So maybe UCA can key in on that and try and stop the run game. Defense is going to have to step up this week.
Yeah, it's going to be definitely a low-scoring game. Probably not a fun game to watch, and it might be close. The first half might be really close, but I think one team's going to pull away in the second half for sure.
I think it's going to be very interesting second half, especially if you both predict that the first half might be a little bit slow to start. It's going to be interesting to see who's really got the fire in the belly and who wants to come out and really show what they've got in the second half.
It might sound silly, but whatever team puts together a 4-quarter game is going to win this game. Yeah, you might be able to say that at every game, but neither of these teams like to play a 4-quarter game. Whoever does will win this game.
Yeah, and now after seeing UCA play a couple of games, if you had to say one bold prediction for the rest of the season, what would it be?
Well, my bold prediction is this team is still going to win 8 games. I do believe that. And other than that, Willie Matthews, I think my bold prediction this season, he's going to have more reception yards and rushing yards this season. I don't see UCA having a viable running back right now that's going to be able to put up even 90, 95 yards a game. They're going to have a group effort. It's going to take 2 and 3 bodies to get to that 100-yard mark or so every game. I think Willie Matthews is going to have more yards receiving this year.
Yeah, and those are definitely 2 really bold predictions. If you look at the schedule, Nicholls State, win SFA, that's going to be a hard game. My bold prediction is that they finish under 500 in conference. And, that could go both ways. We'll see how this team responds against Missouri State after this tough loss. But, you look at their schedule, Nicholls State win, SFA, that one gets a toss-up. Houston Baptist win, Southern Louisiana is away. That's going to be a hard game. And then they finish with Abilene Christian, Lamar, and then at Sam Houston State. So, yeah, they have a couple of games that they can win, but they have a couple of games I think they're going to lose. So I think a bold prediction is probably finishing right at 500, maybe a little lower. This team's just – I don't know. It's just not living up to expectations. I guess we had a lot of, expectations for this team, but it seems like with injuries that are happening, it's just kind of falling apart. But I think they might figure out what team they are.
You mentioned before about the SFA game. I'm really excited for that one. I think about even making the trip down to SFA because I think it's going to be
fun,
yeah,
especially next year when they come here.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, thank you, Michael and Mitchell, for joining us. We're going to take a short break and we'll be back soon to talk volleyball with Sam and Chris.
In the NCAA Division I Football Championship Subdivision, the game is played with perseverance, integrity, passion, character, and sportsmanship as he works to honor the game and respect his teammates, opponents, officials, and fans. Every FCS player grows in his responsibilities as a student athlete and as a member of his campus and community. The NCAA Division I Football Championship Subdivision. Every down, every day.
Welcome back to Channel 6 Scoreboard. I'm joined by Sam and Chris, and guys, let's talk some UCA volleyball. So the Sugar Bears defeated Samford and LSU in their last tournament. What do you think these wins are going to do for their confidence?
It's definitely going to boost their confidence. The Sugar Bears played very well against Samford and LSU, beating Samford in 3 straight sets, and then they took LSU in 5 sets, and honestly didn't even have to go to 5 sets. They could have done it in 4. I wouldn't say they could do it in 3, but they could have done it in 4 because they took LSU in that 4th set, 25-23, all the way to the border, and just LSU just kind of pulled ahead. So confidence-wise, they played an SEC team, a powerful team from a powerful conference. Maybe not the best in the SEC with a 1-3 record right now, but definitely a really powerful team when it comes from look at the recruits that they're getting. Samford it's another FCS opponent, but it's a good FCS opponent. And so the Sugar Bears really needed this, especially to get their younger players who are playing more confidence and more game time. And I really think it's going to work out well for them when it comes to the rest of the season.
I agree completely with Chris. I think this was a great confidence booster for the team. I think it was a tournament that they went in honestly not knowing what the results were going to be, and they came out stronger than they would have thought. I mean, to play an SEC team no matter what and beat them is unbelievable, especially for a smaller school like us. So I think it should give them a lot of confidence going into the conference play to start the conference play season.
Yeah, and against Florida State, number seven ranked school in the country, they had their first 2 sets, and the first set was kind of a whooping.
Little bit there, yeah.
But the second and third set were actually pretty close at 25-17 and 25-18. So the Sugar Bears definitely had a confidence builder when it comes to that kind of competition.
Well, I think I did expect them to beat Samford, but against LSU, I think everyone was a little bit shocked at how well they did do, especially when after last week when they played the tournament at home and they had Boise and Tulsa here, and they did fall to them. So I think that beating LSU is for sure going to put their confidence up. But after losing those games at home, I think, we really haven't got too much of a strong understanding yet. But I really hope that this is going to do really well for their confidence and help them.
I agree.
So do you think Coach McFactory is trying to prepare his team for another NCAA appearance by playing such strong teams?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this is all he's trying to do. I think by playing all these big schools, he wasn't wanting the season to be easy. He wasn't wanting the start of it to just be like 5-0 right off the bat. No. He had plans for the end of the season, which is smart. I think coaches need to go in preparing them for what the end of the season holds, because what comes at the end of the season is what matters and all of the season played.
Yeah, definitely. And if you look at the competition they play, we talked about it last time, Oregon, Ohio State, LSU, Florida State, teams like that. They did this last year when they played Penn State and they played, Kansas, but this year he cranked it up a few notches. Definitely, going against number 7 Florida State is no easy task for any team to do, and that's even if you come from the ACC or anyone else like that. So definitely, McFadger's just trying to prepare them for the shock that may happen, even if they're going against a Purdue like they've done before. But I really think he may have a young team, and they may not have the power that they've had in the past. But if they make it to the NCAA tournament, I'm thinking they could possibly get a first-round win.
So the offense that we've seen for the Sugar Bears seems to be more like what you used to be seeing last year with Marissa Collins. Do you think this team's finally found their rhythm?
I would say they are close to their rhythm. We've seen some great play from the starting 6 that usually play. Heather Schnars is doing what she always does. She was named Offensive Player of the Week for the Southland Conference recently, so that's the first award for the conference for the Sugar Bears. But, she's got 113 kills on the season, and she doesn't just stop there. She's also very defensive for the Bears. She's got 60 digs, 11 blocks. She's a great player. Then you look at everyone else like Fulani Pettis and Evie Grace Singleton, and even Alicia Dietrich on the defensive end has stepped up also. And then you've got Shelby Behringer. So the starting 6 for the Sugar Bears have started to mold as a starting unit. And I'm thinking this next tournament they have is going to really help them solidify as a team.
I love having Chris here because he's definitely, I always call him our stats man. I'm not about stats, I'm about what people see. And what I think that this team has is that they are pulling together. They are figuring out what they're going to do with Amy South as their setter, because your setter is who everything revolves around. If your setter can't do it, nobody can do it. And I think that with her playing so well, it makes sure that everything's just in sync. The players are playing together, they're talking to each other, and the hits are in contact. So I think that if they just keep this up, by the start of conference play, we're going to be ready.
Yeah, and you definitely. I remember you were at one of the last games with me, and we had a good talk with Coach Newberry, and Coach Newberry was really upset during the Tulsa game, saying if we're not passing the way we know how to pass, and when we pass the way we know how to pass, nobody can beat us, and that showed in LSU, and it's shown so far with Amy South taking over the offense with over 329 aces this season. I mean, she's putting in work right now, and it's not like it's just her, someone who no one even expects. You know who second place on the team is in kills right now? It's Evie Grace Singleton, who came out of nowhere last season. She's got 81 kills, not trailing too far behind Heather Schnars. So look out. There's something here and there that could go different ways.
I wanted to mention that Heather Schnars actually got Offensive Player of the Week this week in Southland Conference. So I think that as well is going to be a great booster for the team, knowing that they've got one of the strongest players, what the panelists believe, in the Southland Conference right now. So I think with players like South and Evie Singleton and Heather Schnars, I really don't think that. I think this team is really going to be one to mess with this year, especially after not losing a whole game in conference all last season. Do you agree with that?
I mean,
or-
I think they're going to stay just with that. I think that something that they have that the other teams in the Southland Conference don't have is McFatridge, who knows how to coach his players, and they all build together every season. We may have lost Marissa Collins and a few other star key players, but all of these girls, like I tell Chris all the time, have been taught the same exact way. They're all going to play the same exact way as the team did last year.
So other than Fulani and Schnaz and South, do you see any other players really stepping up in this team?
Definitely, I just mentioned it with Evie Gray Singleton coming out of left field there. She's got 81 kills on the season, but not only is it 81 kills, she's got 6 service aces, and she's got 40 digs. So she's kind of everywhere on the court right now playing for the Sugar Bears. And we called out Alicia Dietrich last week on the show, and she may not be stepping up completely on the offensive side, which she's getting there. She's got 59 kills, but where she's really helping out the Sugar Bears is on defense. She's got 20 blocks on the season. There's only 2 players that have more blocks than her, and that's Fulani Pettis. And you've got the freshman Megan Nash. Megan Nash has 22 blocks along with Fulani Pettis. And so when you look at people like Evie Gray Singleton or players like Megan Nash coming out of left field, there's definitely people that can help and step up and not just, be background players. And that's why I mentioned earlier, the starting 6 is actually starting to mold together. And it's something that's kind of beautiful to see because like you said, Samantha, Dan McFatridge is a genius when it comes to coaching his team, and he knows what he's doing. A lot of these players have played in the same system for the past 2 or 3 years. You've got freshmen coming into a program where all of the upperclassmen know what coach expects. So when you're a freshman, you don't walk into this program and think, oh, it's just another volleyball team. No, it's Dan McFatridge, UCA Sugar Bears. You know what's expected of you, and that's how you play.
Quite an elite team, I would say. I don't think anyone's going to think that this team's a walk in the park. But the guys, they come back this weekend to play at home in the Prince Centre. What's your prediction for the Sugar Bears this week? How many games do you think they're going to win?
I don't know exactly how many games, but I'm going to say that they're going to have a successful run here this weekend because they are coming back home from such a tough tournament away, and they got, again, the confidence booster against LSU and Samford. So I think coming back with their home crowd, because we know how the Prince Center gets, it's going to be intense and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch.
I'm honestly expecting the Sugar Bears to sweep this tournament for them. You look at UNO, who's a 4-6 team. They haven't really played anybody that's tough. They haven't played anywhere near the level of competition that UCA has played. They're 4-6, and it's against a lot of smaller schools like Alcorn State or teams like Arkansas Pine Bluff. Nothing really great. You've got Grambling State, who's sitting at 1-6, and they played a lot of the same kind of competition that New Orleans has played against. The toughest match for the Sugar Bears is going to be UNLV. And they've also played some low-level competition, but it is a tougher school. They're sitting at 8-3. That's the main battle that the Sugar Bears are going to have to face against. And the best thing about that for them is that they play them on Saturday, the last game of the tournament, after they've had a whole day of success. In my mind, they're going to have the success against New Orleans and Grambling State. So they're going to come in on that last game on a high, knowing they can have their best game after a good night's rest against UNLV. So I'm predicting 3-0 for the tournament.
So you believe that they're going to beat New Orleans then?
Yep.
Well, they match up against New Orleans. Do you think this is going to be a good measure of how they're going to go in the Southland Conference?
I'm not predicting it as a good measure, only because New Orleans is a lower level team when it comes to volleyball in the Southland Conference, and the Sugar Bears are definitely a top tier team. And like we said earlier, the Sugar Bears are starting to hit that stride. They're starting to play together. They're starting to understand each other. And we haven't seen anything from Amy South, Heather Schnars, Fulani Pettis, or Evie Gray Singleton. And there's also someone else back there, Rachel Skinner. She's number 6. She's creeping up. She's going to start surprising you in the stats list because she's a hustler. So New Orleans, it's kind of like a pickup game for an NBA team versus a high school team is what I'm thinking.
Massive call right there.
That's a pretty big call, but I'm not going to agree completely. I think, though, that there's a certain familiarity to playing a team in your conference, especially when they are a lower end team. So for us to be at the top and New Orleans, like Chris said, kind of down at the bottom, it's just going to be a confidence booster again to play them. I'm going to call it, of course, they're going to win this game for them to win it and then finish out, and then start the conference soon. So with this, I think it's all just a confidence booster. And again, getting familiar with the season's going to be.
Well, we definitely don't want them to lose now. We both just said that it's just a lower level team.
Mark our words.
Yeah.
It's
So
okay.
if they do lose, I'm going to be a little bit concerned. So hopefully,
I'm going to hide under a shelter.
Don't worry, we'll talk about it next week.
well, thank you both for joining me. This has been another week of Scoreboard, and we'll see you next time.